Au revoir.
Okay, welcome to another episode of FitPetBoston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato, and I am the host of the show. Today, I am joined by my good friend, Jamie.
Hello.
Who is back for another interview. Jamie's been on the podcast a few times before in different contexts with different people, so I'm super excited to have you back. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for your listening ear. It means the world to me that you have chosen to spend the next few moments getting to know Jamie a little bit better. If you're into what you're hearing, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. If you're listening on Spotify, it takes about 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review. It's so easy. You just push the button and let everybody know that you enjoy listening to the show, and it helps get out to more people, which is super helpful. The next month or two, I have packed with interviews, and I'm excited to be able to speak with people one-on-one again. I got a little bit of cold feet from doing that, but I am back into doing interviews with local dog handling professionals and also people that are involved with dogs but work in different ways. So that should be super duper fun. So without any further ado, welcome back, Jamie.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you too. I always have a great conversation with you.
I miss our Monday Frisbee. We were saying that earlier.
I know.
But, it's been a long time, or it feels like it's been longer than it has.
No, it doesn't. It's been a long time.
It's been a while. Love the Frisbee. I love that group. It's such a good group. So.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, about your experience with us?
Yeah. So first of all, Leah gets a great group of people together. So if you ever get an opportunity, there's awesome people. I just kind of showed up at the end of a season with my dog Desmond and a roller ring. So Desmond is, he's 8 now.
Wow.
So he's 8. He is not structurally put together very well, as most can attest to. As soon as you see him, they all point at him and go, "Oh my God, he's going to poop. Don't let him poop on the field." We walk into a training space every single time I go into a training space. "Oh my God, does he have to poop?" No, he doesn't have to poop. It's just, he's weird. He's built weird. He's also a little bit of a weird dog in certain situations as well. A lot of credit to Lori. She gave me an awesome little bit of really simple advice that just, after everything that I had done already, just kind of like icing on the cake. So thanks, Lori. So we showed up with a roller ring. I was like, let's just see if he likes this. We're just looking for something fun to do with my dog, who maybe isn't going to be doing trialing in an obedience ring or rally and stuff like that. But we want to keep doing stuff together. We showed up. He already kind of was really familiar with the ring and familiar with chasing it. So we just did a round, throwing the ring for him. He loved it. Showed up the next week, and I always bring out his tug toy, and I brought the ring because I was like, I want him to tug on the ring in between reps, just really working to figure out what's the way that's going to make him want to do this game. And turns out it didn't take much. He loves it.
Yeah, there wasn't any conflict between the tugging and the chasing for him. I mean, he enjoys his final tug after the timer goes off.
Yes. Yeah. So the way I do it with him, tug and play has been the thing for him that just opened up his world. It's been amazing. It's been the way we have learned to navigate the world together. It's been the thing that's built his confidence everywhere we go. He used to not be able to leave my house. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go on a walk. We couldn't put him in the car. Nowhere. But tug, game changer. So I get out. I know this. I'm prepared. We've never been to this field before. Or if we had, I think it'd been in the context of tug through GRC because we have also practiced in the same field. And I'm like, I'm going to get him engaged. We're going to tug. We're going to tug all the way out to the start line. And I'm going to out him. And then we're going to start the game. And so I transitioned pretty quickly to the actual disc. We got away from the tug ring. But I still continued using a bite, a jute, French linen tug. All the way out, I drop it on the side, take off his leash. We start the game. And on the very last throw of our round, coming back, I out him about 10 feet from me. He spits the Frisbee out and flies through the air at the tug. And we have the best time. And we tug all the way back off the field, and he loves it.
He does. He's so funny too because he shakes the tug and he growls and everybody just laughs.
Oh my God.
When Jamie and Desmond are coming out to the field.
You can hear him a mile away. He's like a little dinosaur. So, but yeah, I mean, I can't say that I think he's ever going to get on actual throws. That's fine. He loves the rollers. He has a great time. He is a terrier. So I assume maybe just likes to go to ground more than he wants to go into the air. I keep trying. I'm not going to give up on him until his body can't do it. So we keep doing like little tosses to see if he can catch, but he's kind of the mindset, like, why would I jump up there to get it if it's just going to land over there?
Yeah, totally.
So, and that's fine, like it's a game he loves. I had to get really good at rollers to kind of keep up with him because he runs faster than those short little, like the little rollers you do for like new dogs and puppies that are only going like, to that, what is it, 10 yards? Is that the first one? So, I mean, we're throwing way out. We're like looking at trying to go into the threes as often as we can. Doesn't always work out. It's a lofty goal. I think we probably get a couple.
Did you get a couple threes?
Yeah. On rollers, which is wild.
Yeah.
So I've had to get really good at those. But it's been fun. It's been a good challenge.
I think the most rewarding thing about watching you guys was you could tell in the beginning he was running out to the desk, but the farther he would get away from you, like he would slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's just indicative of you have done so much with him together. And the farther the dog is going away from you, he was getting like slightly insecure.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of the year, I mean, it was just full gas every single throw. He was totally comfortable going out and coming back. And that was really, really cool to see because he was also retrieving a lot faster, getting more into the rhythm of it. So you could physically see week to week the improvement with his drive.
Oh my God, and being confidence.
Being like, this is cool. I know exactly what I need to do right now. And I know I'm 30 yards away from mom, but it's going to be totally fine. And outing is like beautiful when he comes back. I mean, he's obviously worked on that command extensively, so that was easy for you. But it's just seeing him go from I'm doing this, but I'm not sure about it to running full gas is really, really cool. And it's also a great way to exercise your dog.
Oh my God, it's awesome. It's so great. Everything about it. I mean, especially you watch, like there are so many of the dogs that are growing in confidence and growing in what they're doing and they're figuring it out. And like, it's just cool to watch. It's cool to see people figure out how to help their dogs in those situations too, which is, I mean, man, it's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it is. And it's weird for me too. I was thinking about it the other day because for the past couple of years in the retriever training group that I'm a part of, the guy that runs that group is kind of, he's a good leader is what he is, but he reads this book called Extreme Ownership. And so we've read that the past couple of years at the beginning of the year. And I've read it and been like, it's all about building, like team building and being a good leader and taking responsibility for the decisions that you make and, being the one to take the blame on yourself if things don't go right and not to kind of look at everybody else and say, well, he didn't do this and she didn't do that and whatever. And I've always read the book and been like, but I'm not a leader. Like I work for myself. I'm out with this pack of dogs and like, yeah, I'm their leader, but it's not like I'm engaging with them in a human way where I have to communicate with them verbally or anything like that. And then I realized like, oh, for this thing that I do every single Monday night for like 30 weeks out of the year, like, yeah, I'm the leader of this thing. So how can I make sure that I'm representing myself in a way that is, helping everybody else reach whatever goal they want? And I think the biggest thing for this particular sport that's totally different than like any other dog sport is that like we're all working together as a team. So we succeed if everybody is doing well, and we do poorly if everybody does poorly. And of course, it's like not all about the score for many teams. It's just about like improving week to week. But for us, like we've had that attitude, and in every season that we play, like we're in the top 3 teams in our league. So I think that it's a good testimony to like we have great people first and foremost. And then I have high standards for people that come, you know, like I care more about like safety, I think, than I don't want to compare myself to any other teams, but I care a lot about safety. I care a lot about like, is your dog listening to you when you ask them to come to you after the round is over so you can get back to your car, you know, and we're not like chasing a dog all around the place to to end the round,
which really isn't a problem. I don't think we've really had that issue.
No, not at all, because I don't allow it. It's like beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's just like even though it's a little fun thing, I do try to take it seriously, but also keep it fun, you know, and not put too much pressure on people to, you know, get those high scores every week. But without putting that pressure, the scores are coming kind of naturally, which is really, really awesome. So, and I've improved a lot too with Ruben compared to like where we were a few years ago. So that's been really fun.
Oh my God, you guys look great out there.
Yeah, I don't always play with Raven because she's catches like a crazy dinosaur and makes me very nervous. But were you there the week she ran into the brush pile?
Yes, I was. I was also there, I think the week, so Colton did the same thing. Colton ran into that brush pile. And I think Colton's the one who broke the table.
Margarita broke the table.
Okay. Same handler though. Melissa, I'm calling you out. No, it was these dogs, they want to play the game. They're in it.
So basically these situations happened simply because we threw it and the dog was trying to catch it. It wasn't any misbehavior.
No.
But it's scary sometimes. And my Ruben would never run into the brush pile. Like if I threw the Frisbee and it went near there, he'd be like, yeah, no, you need to come get this.
You climb in and get that. Thank you.
Yeah. And Raven is just like balls deep in like a brush pile full of boards and nails and all kinds of other things that could have literally killed her. So I got spooked after that. I never threw from the same side. And then yeah, I look at it more like I know she enjoys it and has fun, but I do a lot of other stuff with her.
Yeah.
So the last couple of seasons I used as like a time for Ruben and I to just bond, and he has his little special thing that he does with me. So that was nice.
I love that.
Me too. It's a fun group. And anyway, I could talk about this all day, but I wanted to talk about your new family member.
Yeah, I can hear him, I think. Sorry, Lori.
Hang on.
I heard him before.
I can't hear him.
I heard him before. I think Lori's got it under control. So I have a new family member that we're talking about right now. His name's Elroy. He is an XL American Bully off of health tested and titled parents. So he is from Tennessee, so Mount Ruckus Kennels. Megan Mills, she's wonderful. I mean, the dogs are amazing. I've been following the kennel for a while. This was not spur of the moment. This wasn't like it's Christmas, let's go get a puppy. I have been thinking about for a while. So like we lost Charlie last summer. So it had been about, I want to say year and 3 or 4 months by the time we added Elroy. Things had been going really well in the house between my other 2 dogs. They were living their best life. Everything was awesome. No stress. Charlie was kind of the fly in the ointment, if you will. And so, you know, I was like, they're both older, right? So Eddie's 10, Desmond Eddie's 9. I think he's 10 though. I think he's a little older than the rescue said he was. But either way, you know, they're 9, 8 years old. They're reaching a point where, you know, maybe we're going to be retiring them, slowing down in the coming years, or, you know, hopefully not, but it's bound to happen. And so as I was thinking about that, I was like, I don't want to accidentally ask my dogs to keep going beyond the point of where they should, because I enjoy the things that we do so much, right? So like Eddie, we do obedience, we do weight pull, we do, some GRC stuff. Desmond does GRC. He does the disc, obviously, and he's my hiking buddy. So
yeah, but you do obedience with Eddie. Did you say that?
I did.
Okay,
so
sorry.
I do obedience. No, don't apologize. I'll talk about obedience with Eddie all day because he loves it and it's a ton of fun. But so I knew that day is coming. I don't know when. I hope it's a long ways away still, but I know it's coming. And so I knew there was going to either be a point where I was sitting around with retired dogs that were living out their lives and I was bored, or I was going to add a puppy at some point. Right. So those were kind of my two options. And then I was like, okay, do I add a puppy when they're old and retired and really don't have the energy or willingness to deal with a puppy? Or do I do it now? Right. So I opted for now, and it's been going really well. So I went and drove down I met Megan. She was so nice. She met me in Virginia. Thank God. It was already a really long drive. Like it was, and on top of like holiday traffic, the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I drove down to Roanoke, Virginia. I met her, picked up this tiny little puppy. He was her favorite of the litter. Like she was so sad to see him go.
I know. I saw the post that she wrote after you picked him up. I was almost like, why didn't you keep the dog?
So yes, she really wanted to, but she's like, I feel so bad because I've never not kept a puppy. That's why I breed, is to keep, but she's getting out of breeding.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I know. I was like, are you sure? You sure you wanted to? Because I love Elroy. He's been fantastic.
Good breeders. We need you. Please stick around.
I know. Please stick around, Megan, please. So anyway, so she placed him, but she every day, like, quit. What did she say? Quit trying to convince me to keep you is what she would say to him all the time. But I'd reached out about a different puppy that had just kind of caught my eye in the litter that she had posted was still looking for a home. And she goes, you don't want that one. You want this one. She goes, that one, he's not going to do what you want. I know, I can see what you do. Like, he's not going to do what you want. And then she sent me all these videos and she gave me information on both puppies. Like, she didn't tell me like you can't have, but she was very much like, here's information on both of them. I really think this one's the one that's going to do what you want. And so far she's been right. So he is 15 weeks old tomorrow. We are just coming out of critical socialization period, which, God, I hope I did everything, like, what are you going to do?
Well, he was with the dogs in the yard and he was very good. He's not a bully at all.
No, he's such a good boy.
Yeah, he just hung out. Yeah. It's nice.
He's so nice. So he's really social, super dog social, super human social, really, really handler oriented. He's food, toy, physical play. Like, his favorite game of all to play is literally like hand-to-hand combat. Mm-hmm. I am covered in so many scratches and bites because I've had to teach him because it's his favorite. So you have to kind of, especially with shark puppy teeth, teach them how to do it in a way that is safe, right? Because he needs the outlet. He's not going to be a bite sport dog. That's just not who he is. But he does want to do that stuff. I don't know if it'll continue beyond teething. I don't know. I know he's not currently teething, but I've heard a few people that said that it got better and started directing more onto toys after the adult teeth came in. So fingers crossed on that one because my hands are taking a beating. But he's getting really good about it. He just takes feedback really well. I'm super, super happy about that. He's just like social feedback, honestly. Like, I just kind of like, I stop playing and I let him know that it hurt or whatever. And he goes, oh, was this better? And I go, yes, sir, it is. Thank you so much. And that's been it. He's been, what have we been doing? Been doing some tug. He's getting better at tug. He brings it back and like kind of pushes it into me like you would hope with a game of tug. So I let him win and he just comes right back. And so we're getting some more of that going, which is nice. So
Got to get him on those puppy rollers too.
I've started with the ring.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I'd love to see him do that game because it's fun. Discs are fun, guys. It's a little addicting. So be careful. But yeah, he's been doing awesome. He's
so be careful.
Be careful about things all these dog sports are addicting.
If your dog likes it, yeah, because you just see them light up and you're like, oh yeah, this is what we're gonna do now. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm gonna spend all my time and money.
Oh God! And then you get good at it too, because none of these dog sports. People think that it's just about the dog, but it's not just about the dog. There's so much that goes into it as a handler, right? Like, I mean, it's just disc alone. Like, you have.
Disc is the worst one.
Oh my God. It is so hard to throw a disc. It is hard. Like, you take a dog, so like Temple. So Temple is she the highest scorer on the team?
One of them, yeah.
So
it's either her Piper or Ruben.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, and so I see Temple regularly. I take her out and I'll throw a disc for her occasionally, and I'm like, wow, you suck at this. Because I throw rollers.
Right.
Very good at rollers,
Right.
guys. Very good at rollers. So, I mean, it takes a lot of skill. And if you're looking at like even something like, so I do weight pull, right? Weight pull, you're like, okay, so it's all on your dog. It's not. I mean, there is so much handling involved in weight pull that the more you do it, the more decision making and the way you help your dog and the way you recognize when they're struggling and when they're going to be able to get through it versus when you ask for cart help and you take the foul and how you walk up and all of it. There's so much to it that you invest all this time and this energy into understanding these games and these sports, and you want to keep going. And so you kind of start to look for dogs that are going to do the things that you want to do.
Sure.
So yeah. It's addicting. Again, be careful.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure whatever you guys choose to do, you'll be successful because that's your personality, you know? So as long as he likes to do it, I think you're going to be good to go.
Put him in his little,
you got to teach him how to heel like Eddie heels, and you'll be all set.
Dude,
he'll be in the obedience ring I
cannot wait.
Cleaning up.
I cannot wait. I can't wait. He's so he'll do anything. Eddie will. I mean, we bring him out. I've got a video I should show you. Bring him out to do training at night. So I do obedience training for dinner at night with my dogs, and bring him out, and he knows we're doing it, and he just gets fired up, and he's in front of me like a bark and hold in front of me, like barking and jumping in the air and like losing his mind. And then you just give him a command, and he fastest he'll flip into anything. It's beautiful. But I do that in front of Elroy. I'm hoping that he picks up some of Eddie's.
Will you bring Elroy to the studio that I rented?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, so right now, Elroy doesn't have a lot of obedience on him, obviously. He's a little baby, but...
just get him into the spaces.
Yeah. So I brought him to the CDSP obedience trial that was at Masterpiece a few weeks ago. So they do like their end of the year, New Year's Eve kind of trial. So I brought him there. He had a lot of fun. Like, it was a really cool experience. He got to play with a younger dog out in the yard. I was there. And then... just did a lot of watching. I fed him his lunch. You know, we watched the other dogs. He watched the people walk around. Wanted to see all of them. So that was it was good for him. It was good for him to not be able to, to share space and not interact is obviously like very important. But yeah, definitely be bringing him. He's always in the car. So he'll be there.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to recommend to myself is to get into some of these training spaces where trials happen. And it's not always possible. But for Raven, like, she's 2, so she's getting to the point where, like, she's an adult dog, and I should be able to bring her to random places, and she should be able to perform. But I did all of her training for CD, like, before she was 1 year old. So I'd bring her to new places, and she'd be like, what? Where are we? What are we doing? And Masterpiece was a place where I was able to get in there for run-throughs before we trialed. And that was critical.
I love that they do that there.
It was critical because you can give the dog feedback when you're practicing, and you can't give the dog feedback when you're trialing. So if I'm not able to say, dude, don't sniff the floor.
Right.
They're going to sniff the floor at Masterpiece because this is a facility where they have a pretty old, porous, rubbery, foamy floor, and they do a lot of events in there. So they have scent work events, and they run tons of group classes, and they're doing all of this stuff, and where people are dropping food on the floor and then
all the time
grinding it in with their feet, and you can vacuum that floor a million times. That the scent on that floor is out of control. And for a dog that has never been exposed to something like that before, and then you go in there, you're standing straight up and down, and you're not even talking to your dog, they're going to be like, well, this floor is like way more interesting than what we're doing right now. So it's important to me to get into some of these training spots and rent some ring time and go to run throughs. I know they have them. Wagon Tails love to go there. Silver City and Masterpiece. Those are the 3 big ones around here where they run trials. So yeah, I have to remind myself like, hey, when these things pop up, like get into those spaces and be able to have your dog on the leash, be able to give your dog some feedback, let them know when they're doing the right thing, let them know when they're doing the wrong thing, so that when they're in the ring trialing, you have a better chance of being successful. I think that's important. The easiest places for me to trial with Raven are outside because we do all of our training outside. And so grass is like the best for me. And for everybody else, they're like, I don't trial outside. And it's like, for me, I'm like, please, outside, outside. She does really, really well outdoors. So yeah, which is a little different. I know that she's an anomaly in that way. But yeah, I think getting little guy into some of those spaces is going to be great.
Oh, I'll have him. He'll be there. He'll be there next week.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, he says he rides with me, right? So it was part of why I got him now. So obviously he showed up when he showed up. He was born when he was born. But I wanted a puppy like late fall in general because I wanted to be able to bring that dog with me on my rounds. Like I wanted that dog to be able to get crate trained in the car, learn to wait their turn, learn that every time we stop is not necessarily going to be a time for you to get out of the car. I also knew that I have 2 adult dogs, one of which might not be great with puppies. Turns out he's actually pretty cool. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I wanted to bring this puppy out with me. So between stops, I could stop and get him out. And by the time we get home, he's had 2 meals with me. He's had some training. He's had a bunch of exposure and he's somewhat tired. So that way we can have a nice kind of relatively puppy-esque calm in the evening. And honestly, it's worked really well.
Winter's perfect because it's cool. You can leave them in the car. You can't leave the dogs in the car in the summer.
Exactly. So it's worked out great, except for obviously like last week was really cold.
Yeah.
But the good news is most of that was the wind. So he was inside. He was in his little crate and he's got his blankets and his adorable little coat. He was fine. He did great. I'm trying to think of, I mean, yeah, it's worked out really well. I'm enjoying having a puppy so much more than I expected. I'm loving it so much. I was just expecting, so I've never had a puppy before. I've had young dogs. I've had adolescent dogs that I've raised, but I've never had like a baby little puppy.
An 8-week-old puppy.
Yeah, I've never had that before. But I do train people that, you know, maybe I don't see them when they're that young, but that have had a very, very young puppy. And now they're 5-6 months old and I'm working with them. And everything I hear from everyone that has puppies is like, this is so hard. They're not potty trained yet. They're up at 2 a.m. They're up at 3 a.m. All these things. And I'm like, all right, this is just something I have to get through. And I'll tell you, none of that feels like my reality. And I know part of that is because I'm already structured as a dog trainer and handler and all that stuff.
I will say that is a big thing.
It helps a lot. So to anybody who's listening who struggled, I still empathize. But you
Me too.
Yeah, but you all scared me a lot. If we're being really honest, because I do listen to what people say and I kind of catalog it away. And I'm like, oh no, here we go. So, but he's sleeping through the night. You know, the first thing I did, the first couple nights he was home, I just put him, honestly, he fit in a cat carrier, if you can believe it.
We had Raven in a cat carrier when she was a little pup.
It's so cute. So he's in a at carrier and he's just like right next to me, next to the bed, and he would kind of start whining and I go, all right. And I'd stick my fingers in through the little holes, and all he really wanted was to know that he wasn't by himself. He's waking up probably one of the first times of his entire life, completely alone. New smells, new sounds, everything's new, and he doesn't have his litter mates. He doesn't have his mom. He doesn't have any of the adult members of the household, like the adult dogs, anywhere nearby. And so like that's kind of all he wanted in the middle of the night, was just like reassurance that he wasn't by himself. And so it's just kind of what I did. And overnight, he made it. Obviously I did get up a little earlier. I didn't like do my normal, I didn't sleep in on a Saturday like I miss dearly. Dearly. But, he sleeps through the night. He pees, he goes out and pees at night. First thing in the morning, he's got his little routine. Obviously there's been we've had mishaps, right? We have potty accidents, and there's been a few things. I don't think he's gotten into anything he wasn't supposed to, but a puppy wakes up, maybe he's in his pen, and you don't necessarily realize that he has fallen asleep. Well, what's one of the first things that a puppy does when they fall asleep and wake up? They pee. So he would just get up and you'd be like, oh shoot, were you sleeping? And before you can even get off the couch,
oh yeah, he's gone.
He's stepped off the bed and he has peed. So, little things like that you kind of start paying a lot of very close attention to. But I don't know, it's been a lot of fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your first puppy. That's amazing.
We love it.
I know. When I have a puppy, I think I surprise Laurie a little bit because generally speaking, I'm very relaxed around the house. I'm very like, oh yeah, they're out. All right, they're in. Yeah, okay. And this is our home. So when I'm just chilling at night, I'm just chilling at night. But for some reason, I have like a mom gene that gets expressed when we have a puppy. And I wake up out of a dead sleep and I'm just like out. And I go downstairs and I take that and I forget that it even happened. And then I put the puppy back and I fall back asleep. And then the morning comes, I can't even remember that I did it at night.
Wow.
And I'm up at with Raven. We got Raven like way too young. She was so little. She was like 6 weeks old. So
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. It was a little bit of a situation. It was like her breeder was going on like a hunting trip. So he was like, you need to come get this dog. I'm like, okay. So she was like tiny.
Oh my gosh.
Like tiny. And so we broke a little bit of our rules because normally we'll put the puppy inside a crate at night and I just put her inside my sweatshirt and I was like, we're falling asleep because she was so inconsolable in the crate. Like at that age. So for the first few nights, she wasn't sleeping inside of the crate.
Yeah, but that's an on-the-fly decision that you have to be able to make. Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, by the time she was 8 weeks old, she was sleeping in the crate in our room. But it is a lot of work. But at the same time, the potty training thing can be a lot easier if you just are like a helicopter mom for a few weeks. And then before you know it, dog's potty trained and, they're more comfortable going outside than inside as well. So... And you have multiple dogs in the house, so it's like there's just more moving parts too. You're trying to make sure that there's not an event, where the puppy pisses off the older dog and there's like an overcorrection or something like that. Yeah. That's like a bad thing. I think overcorrections are good a little bit, just to let the dog know, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah,
and it can be really useful. But if it's too much of an overcorrection, it's obviously not a good thing. But let's see, what else about Elroy? You mentioned doing nail clips and ear handling and stuff like that. How's that going?
So I've been doing a lot of handling stuff. That's typically what we're doing in the evenings is handling work because he's going to be a large dog. He's an XL. So that means, I'm trying to think of his mom in her conditioned state when she's in her most muscular state, right? She's she's 90. Oh, Megan's gonna be so mad at me for not knowing this. But she's a large dog. His dad's pretty large too. So he needs to be able to be restrained. He needs to be able to accept all kinds of different things, whatever the vet's gonna need to do, whatever I'm gonna need to do. And I've never had a dog where I really haven't been able to do that. And I'm not starting now. So, you know what I mean? I'm just not. He does a cute little chin rest. I can pick up all of his gums, look at all his teeth. I can check in his eyes. I can clean out. So when he first came for the first several weeks, we're looking much better now. But just the first several weeks coming out of being in the pen with the other littermates and stuff like that. He just had a lot of ear gunk that kept building up and I would clean it out. Very invasively clean out his ears. Of course I used food, hey, good job. But really let me do it. I can hold him in place. He'll do a stand for me. I can wrap all my arms around him and restrain him like a vet hold. I've started doing that sort of stuff with him. He is the most dramatic little thing.
And pit bulls are funny too, because they scream and cry like an actual baby.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So dramatic, right? I can trim nails of dogs. I work I do a lot of cooperative care with dogs that are bite risks for nail trims and stuff like that. Oh my God. He's like acting like literally the other night I need to do it again this week. So I've been trying to do it every week.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was just doing it while he was sleeping because like there's just no need. It needs to get done, but also like he's a squirmy little thing. So while he was sleeping, I would just clip a couple nails. But we started doing it more routinely. So in my house, I do nails every Monday. Nails, ears, bath if they need it. I try not to overbathe, but Desmond gets like a medicated bath. So he gets bathed on Mondays. It's just kind of my grooming day. And Elroy, I think Eddie was in the other room, and Elroy, I go to do it. I'm in the pen because he's already shown me that he's a little loud about it. So I do it in the pen where no one can get to us. He screamed in such a way. Eddie came out. He was like, where's the dying animal? Like he was ready to go. Desmond, who is scared of all kinds of things, got up, left the room shaking, went to his crate and was like done for the day. So we've got a little bit of work to do there. I can get them all done. It's just a matter of like, he's very squirmy about it. He's a bully. I think it's more, he kind of enjoys the conflict of it a little bit.
Yeah.
More than he's scared. Like his tail isn't like really tucked. Like he's not, generally speaking, he's not really displaying fear behavior.
Right.
He's just being a little shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we'll be doing that when we get home today. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. Or if Lori wants to add another dog to her day. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like he's too young still to really do, and he's not a Malinois, so he's not really sharp with, if I do X, Y happens. Like we're not shaping a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he's not putting the pieces together.
Yeah, so he's got to learn. He's like Eddie in that way. Like Eddie, you'd never guess it. Not the smartest dog in the world. He's just really good at learning. He understands how to do it, and he understands the game of it, and he loves the game. Elroy doesn't know that game yet. And so I can't really shape the nail trims for him.
And sometimes with nail trims, like you just got to get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's like
the longer you're in there, the harder it gets.
Laurie, God bless her, gives our dogs nail cuts once a week. I have probably cut Ruben's nails 3 times in his entire life, which is embarrassing to say because I'll hold him like if she's having a hard time with him. And he's just kind of gotten to the point where he just like puts his ears down and puts his paw out. And he's like, fine. And Raven gets hers cut in the tub, but it's not pleasant. Mm-mm. It's not fun for them. Mm-mm. No matter what. I mean, sometimes you just got to get the job done.
Well, and it's such a weird thing we're asking them to do.
They're not screaming. They're not like expressing their anal gland or anything like that. But it's, you know, because I see videos that people post and their dog is just like, you know, putting their hand up like they're
beautiful
getting
standard poodles.
Yeah, and a manicure or something. And I'm like, who has these dogs? But
poodle people
or yeah,
you amazing people
groomed all the time. But you know, we don't, and that's fine. And they're not, you know, in any type of physically bad situation, but they're not happy about it. And Laurie gets it done lickety split, and they look great, and they're not bleeding all over the place. You know, they're just. They have to get it done.
When it happens, when you quick a dog.
And it will happen.
It does happen.
It will happen.
I mean, God, I already have. Poor dog. No, I mean, especially those little bitty nails when they're so small because you can't really
see.
You can't see anything.
Do you have a Dremel?
No, I have historically not used Dremels because my dogs have been really sensitive to the vibration. Mm-hmm. So I just clip. I've gotten pretty good at that. Though I might go to the dark side.
We have 3 different Dremel options if you want to show them.
All right. We'll mess around with that.
Yeah. We have a quiet diamond drill. We also have the traditional Dremel, and we have the new Dremel that Laurie thinks is high. But I bought her this new Dremel because she couldn't find hers and was like having a breakdown one day about it. So I went to the hardware store and I got her a new one. And the one that
hardware store?
Yeah, they're Dremels. So they're just woodworking tools.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But the new one has like speeds on it, whereas the old one is just on or off. So the new one that we have, it can like plow through a nail on speed 3 really fast. So she's like, with the dogs that are used to the Dremel, she's like, oh yeah, because she can just be like boop boop boop, and it'll really take it down. You have to know what you're doing, or else you can get yourself into a lot of trouble with those, because it's taking quite a bit of nail off.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we have a small a quieter one that it has like a diamond. You know how they put diamond dusting on top on sharp things to make them work better, but it doesn't spin quite as fast, so it's a little bit less effective, but it can work for dogs that are a little more sensitive because it's not as loud and it's more smooth. So yeah, there's different options, but the hardware store has the traditional, because it's a woodworking tool, so people that like carve things in wood or
I don't know why I've never put that together. Well, here we are. Today we learned something.
Definitely cheaper than grooming tools. But,
oh my gosh. All right. Well, I got some new stuff to look for.
Well, that's really good stuff. And I'm glad that you shouted out Elroy's breeder. I'll put her information in the podcast description as well.
Oh, she's amazing.
She is. And I really like what she posts on social media. It's nice, like a little educational, and you can tell that she really puts a lot of effort and care into what she's doing. So that's really neat to see. Do you want to talk a little bit about GRC? Because I know you've been continuing to be active in that dog sport.
Yeah. So GRC. So I know you had Autumn on here a couple weeks ago talking a little bit about GRC. So if anybody is caught up, you've probably at least heard GRC get mentioned. If you haven't, GRC is a sport based kind of on bully breed type games. So the dogs and the games that dogs that kind of fit into that category are going to be more likely to enjoy. So things that are a little bit conflict based, right? So if we think about our American Pit Bull Terriers, even your really nicely bred English Bulldogs, like they want to fight, they want to play tug, they want to, they want to dig, they want to overcome. And so for them, these are really biologically fulfilling games that for a really long time, the messaging has been, we don't play those games because they're going to create aggressive dogs. So the sport is kind of built around the idea of like, let's change that narrative, right? Let's give these dogs who need it and aren't getting it a place to express themselves. Because when they're not getting that biological fulfillment, they're kind of menaces. These dogs are, they're going to develop behavior problems. Just like any, you look at your herding dogs. So what's the main complaint for people with herding dogs that are underfulfilled?
They're chasing cars.
They're bicycles, nipping at their kids' ankles and heels. Like, you get behavior problems when you've got dogs that are not getting their drive met.
I just want to press pause for a second on that too, because I think that it's also incorrect to say that if you are doing those things like herding with a border collie, that your border collie will then ignore a bicycle or a child. That's not correct. And the reason why I wanted to clarify that is because as a dog walker, a lot of people think, well, because my dog's getting exercised, they're not going to be a menace inside the house. The idea is you're creating a relationship with your dog where you're helping them express these natural drives. And then you can tell them when to turn that off as well. So when you say out or when you say game over, the dog realizes, okay, out means I need to drop what's in my mouth and take a step back or whatever, however you want to teach that behavior. Or when you say, hey, game over, I'm not going to interact with you and play anymore. And that way you have some sort of a relationship with this dog now, so that when you are experiencing behaviors that you don't like my dog is nipping my kid's heels or my dog is chasing that car, you have a better chance to be able to say, cut that shit out. And the dog will actually listen to you.
Well, because you matter.
Yeah.
And they care about whether or not you are mad at them, or not mad necessarily, but like they care about the relationship that you have.
If they screwed up and you're not happy about it. And I really wanted to make that statement, especially on the podcast, because we have so many pet dog owners and people that listen. It's like exercise and biological fulfillment, they are training, but you as an owner need to be a part of that somehow.
You need to have switches.
It's not just about letting your dog run around and like get the let out and do the zoomies. Like, yes, that's good.
Sometimes.
But it's not going to solve your training problems. And it's like such a buzzword nowadays to say, oh, play with your dog. Play. It's going to help with these behavioral problems. It's like, yes, it will. But there's a bunch more steps that
There's so
many training steps that need to be added to that play sequence so that you can address your leash reactive cattle dog. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. That was really well said, Leah. You need. I mean that's the relationship and the control part of GRC. So just quickly, GRC, gameness relationship control. It is about building that relationship with your dog and putting in levers of control around the things that spin their dial, right? The things that make them aroused and over aroused, and asking them to think a little bit while they're in arousal. So that way there is like almost that like a pause between stimulus and response.
Right.
In games like tug, you can put, I was saying earlier with Elroy, like we're playing hand-to-hand combat. Like the dog, he wants to put his mouth on me. That's the game he wants to play. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But there needs to be some boundaries. So we can start to set boundaries and we can start to say, when's the beginning of the game and when's the end? What's too much? How does he receive corrections? Like I can gauge how he's going to respond to corrections at a much lower level of arousal than when we're, 6 months down the road and something, that I do, because inevitably we all do something that pisses our dogs off, right? It's just part of life. They're going to piss you off too. But like that's not the time to figure out how your dog responds to guidance and correction, right? So that's kind of what GRC is hopefully going to do for the dogs that are a little bit more conflict oriented in the drives that they have. So, right, these dogs are bull baiting dogs, cattle dogs too, for that matter. They do really.
You have quite a few.
They do really well in this sport.
Yeah.
So if you have a cattle dog, you might not necessarily need to do herding. Maybe you need to do GRC.
It's a lot less expensive than
so much less expensive.
Renting a farm with livestock.
For real, guys.
And the farmer is like, if you mess up my livestock, this is how much it's going to cost.
Yes. So other options. But yeah, so these are dogs that really like historically and biologically, like that drives them. They get spun up on it, right? People are like, the quintessential correct your dog, whatever that means. What they really mean when they say that is give them like some kind of like a collar pop or aversive experience. But for a lot of these dogs, they're like, yes, game on, let's go. It doesn't work as intended. So anywho, that's kind of GRC in a very tight little nutshell.
Yeah.
There's tons to it. There's, like I said, you probably heard Autumn talk about this, so go back and listen to Autumn's episode.
Well, you can say it again.
All right, sure.
Why the hell not?
Sure. So the social responsibility test is your entry-level test to get into the games. So basically, you need to be able to demonstrate that your dog has some level of control around drive before you're allowed to participate in these drive expression games, right? If you've got a dog that wants to murder people, you need to be able to demonstrate that you can get through this test before we let them loose on a spring pole, which is basically a tug in the middle of a room that you are sending them to attack. We don't want them biting the judge, right? We want them to have some control. It's got 3 components: your leash responsibility, your obedience, and the dog's ability to make decisions at liberty. So very simple test, but it is difficult. The pass level.
Everybody says it. The SR1 test is the most difficult one.
It's incredibly difficult. It is I think it's the simplicity that makes it so difficult. Honestly, the way it's set up is so it's going to be a challenge for all dogs, regardless of the drives and temperament that they have. It's meant to test. So does your drivey Malinois or your drivey Labrador Raven have the ability to walk nicely on a leash and greet strangers and do the figure eights without being in a tactical or not tactical heel? That's the higher levels, but without being like in this focused heel. Can they do that? Then obviously, can they handle liberty? Can they be just without instruction for 2 minutes? What do? Do they have zoomies? Can they just hang out and sniff the ground? Do they jump on the judge? Do they jump on you? Do they need constant reinforcement? And then the dogs that are a little bit more couch potato-y, right? Like they're going to do great at those sections, but they're going to struggle with the obedience because you're going to struggle to get the drive necessary to do an obedience routine that long.
Right.
So that's typically where people like everyone's going to struggle somewhere, essentially, which is what makes it kind of a cool, well-rounded test. So there are 3 levels, right? You only need level 1 to do the game. So the games being your slat mill races. So it's a dog powered treadmill, and it's just counting revolutions. Whoever does the most revolutions in a 2-minute period wins the day. So they do 3 rounds. So your dog has to run 2 minutes 3 times as fast as they can, right? They have to have loose leash responsibility to get to the mill and get off of the mill and leave the ring. It's very helpful if you have control on the mill as well, where you can tell the dog to slow down and to speed up. So when you see them getting fatigued, you can stop them and let them, you know what I mean? You can be strategic about it. We have spring pole, which I mentioned earlier. Spring pole is basically, it's a bite sport without the human shaped target. So you're sending a dog, it's a 5-minute round. You're sending them to hit a toy that is hanging off of like a bungee, basically. And there's an obedience routine around that. Every dog gets the same routine, and they get judged on their kind of the intensity that they hit the toy and stay on the toy, the precision that they do the obedience, and then their fluency to transition back and forth between the two. After that, weight pull, which is obviously my favorite, and then wall climb. So those are the 4 games. And then there's also higher levels of your social responsibility test if you want to achieve that, which get more and more complicated as you go.
Yeah, like any sport.
Yeah, as you would hope.
And most of the bite sports, I would say, all of them, now that I think about it, have some sort of entry-level obedience to be able to participate in the more fun stuff, shall we say. So like Laurie does IGP and you have your BH routine. So it's like a ton of healing and stationary behaviors and recalls and stuff like that before the dog can get into doing the protection work. So I think that it's modeled nicely in a way that reflects what's going on elsewhere. But yeah, and to elaborate a little bit more, you are a GRC judge.
Yeah, so I am an SR judge. I do mill race judging and spring pole judging. I run the Valor GRC club that runs in Medfield at FluxPack. We have a ton of fun there. So we're looking to build a wall climb there, but we've got our weight pull equipment, we've got our mill, and the spring pole setup, and we spend a lot of time doing, obviously, play, right? So the basis of most of the stuff that we do is like, can we get the dog to be comfortable enough to play in the space? And if they'll play in the space, will they do some obedience for play, right? Like we want a happy dog doing all the stuff. We want the best emotional state that we can get out of the dog. So anytime, and I think this is pretty consistent across the board with any club that I've visited or been a part of, one of the first things, if not the first thing that we do with dogs that are new is we say, can you play with your dog here? Can you play with your dog with food, right? Will they chase food? Will they even take food? What can we do to get this dog into a playful, interactive state of mind with you before we go anywhere else? So that's my involvement in GRC. Did the Rules and Regulations Committee last year. That was a hoot.
Different angle. More of an administrative role, eh?
That was...
Getting into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, we combined so there were 2 documents basically, and one that was your events and one that was more administrative documents, but you never knew which one to go to for what. So we spent a lot of time clarifying language and putting those documents together. Fortunately, I had a bigger role in the beginning, and then it kind of moved towards the board members, which I was grateful for because it was a lot. I mean, good. I think that thing must be like 60 pages long now.
How many board members? Obviously, Jay Jack, we should say.
Yes, this is Jay's. Well, he doesn't like
his sport.
Yeah, he doesn't like people to say it's his sport, but it's his sport. So I believe there are 5 board members at this time, and then there's 2 officers.
Cool.
Yeah. So Mandy is the president. So Jay's wife is the president. And then, yeah, I think everybody else just kind of has whatever role they have, but I think she's the only one who has like a set role. But if I'm wrong, go check the website, I guess.
Yeah. Well, anything that is as popular as GRC is, I think it's nice to see a level of organization
I agree.
associated with it, And obviously every dog sport is different. Like Toss and Fetch has a very loose organization because it's all online and the rules are like so simple that it's easy to create new clubs and have continuity there. But with something that involves so much equipment and has such high standards and is a legit dog sport, it can't be easy to run in a way where all the clubs are on the same page. So
yeah, and they do their best. Like they don't want to get really involved in like at club level. Like they kind of try to like, you run it however you want to run it.
but here's the rules.
Yeah, but here are the rules. And if you're doing tests and that sort of stuff, like if you're running drive events, this is how it's going to be run. And these are the rules for that. You can prepare for that however you want. It's very, method agnostic. Cool. Right? They don't care. They care about the look of the dog. Like how does that dog present when they show up in the ring? There are points taken, like, so you'll lose points if your dog is terrified the entire time they're in there.
Autumn spoke to that a little bit with her dog. So yeah, and I won't repeat what she said because I don't want to put words in her mouth, but you can listen to that episode. But cool.
Yeah.
I think this is great.
Yeah. So like train however you want, so long as it doesn't flatten the dog, right? We want to see the best in every dog that comes through.
Which cannot be said for every sport, Sometimes you see interesting things when you go places and you're like, how exactly did they get that dog to do that?
Yeah.
But I digress. Very, very cool stuff. I got the chance to go out to one of your club practices. It's at the same field as Toss and Fetch. So Raven and I had a good time just practicing obedience with distractions, which was really nice, and really nice group of people as well.
Yeah, so that was a combo practice. So we did that with the Southern New Hampshire GRC group. They're fantastic. I've done a couple of practices up at their club. Just like I brought Elroy up a couple weeks ago. A couple of them do some of the weight pull, so I see them at weight pull. They're a really good group of people. So that was like a 50-50 group. It was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
So cool. So I want to take a step way, way back. So you came and did a podcast episode. I think that you were kind of freshly out of working with your very first mentor at the time, and you were on your own.
Way back.
Walking dogs and training dogs. And you had made a comment to me that your training had changed over the years. And I think that that's a pretty cool reflection because I like to leave room for change, even change on the fly. And as trainers, like we're self-educating much of the time, right? There's no rule book for this thing. And in my opinion, if you are focused on the well-being of the dog and you want what's best for them and you always have that attitude, you're not going to do wrong by the dog, right? So there is flexibility to change and adapt and grow and throw some things away and add new things and have a toolbox that involves a bunch of different ideas for certain dogs and not others. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit. I'm sure you don't even remember what you said way back in the day, but just give a couple of examples of how like some basic things have changed. I mean, I know from observing just, you used to do a lot of head halty stuff.
Yes.
And it seems like you've gotten away from that.
Yes.
I'm just putting ideas in your head really at this point.
No,
if you want to talk
Thank
about
you.
that, great. If you would rather talk about something else, feel free.
I mean, man, like what hasn't changed? So, it's just to speak on the head halter stuff. So the mentor that I worked with, she's been working with dogs. Like getting championships, like perfect scores, national championships type stuff for decades. So she knows what she's doing. Her method for a lot of the behavior training was head halter stuff. So that was a lot of what I did. You do what you're what's working for the person who's teaching you. I still will occasionally. I use the transitional lead. I will still use that. So it's slightly different than your gentle lead or your head halty in that it connects. So it still has that nose piece. So a little bit of extra kind of like control if you need it, if the dog needs a little extra feedback, but it connects to the back of the head where the collar is rather than under the chin. So rather than steering the dog and potentially jerking their neck, you're just kind of slowing them down and adding a little extra again, extra feedback that maybe if they're really not sensitive to the collar in any shape or form, maybe the prong collar is going to really jazz them up rather than help them. It can be a really good option. But generally speaking, God, one of the first things I used to do is talk to people about like, well, let's put a training tool on this dog and we'll get you going. Basically give people a little bit of something that was working right out of the gate so that they would be motivated to keep going. I have changed that dramatically. I can't remember the last time I put a training tool on a dog by my own decision. They're great. I have no problem with them. I have plenty of clients that use them. It's usually their idea and they go, you know what? I really think a prong collar might really help. And I go, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we're going to use it. Let's talk about pros and cons. And more importantly, what's our path to getting off of this tool? That to me is probably one of the most important things that we can do is the owner may never get off the tool, but if we're just slapping the tool on there and not working towards how do I get away from this, you're always dependent on the tool. The dog gets out without use prong collar as the example. If they get out without the prong collar, you're not getting that dog back, right? So the dog is only behaved because of the tool. That should not be where we stop. I personally really, really like working on flat collars. I like working with harnesses. Harnesses not for necessarily walking, though some dogs I do walk on harnesses because that's the owner's preference and the dog does fine. But generally speaking, I'd rather as the human be putting in more work to meet the dog where they're at, to teach them all the stuff that we want them to have. So like the collar pressure, the leash pressure, recall, like building that relationship so that they want to work with us rather than a quick force compliance fix, if that makes sense. But again, that's not to say I use tools. Like I'm not against tools. My dogs are e-collar trained. I don't go out into the woods without my e-collar. Do I use it? No, not typically, but I like the assurance that I have it just in case, because God, who knows what's out there. Definitely see horse poop, right?
Yeah.
The biggest fear I have. So Eddie's obedience is amazing. He's really good. He wears a muzzle and he drags a long line on a harness when we're out hiking for a number of reasons. But the biggest one is if there are horses, I know if I don't recall him at the right time, he's going for that horse. Terrifies me. One, I'm scared of horses, which is a really embarrassing thing to admit, but I'm scared of horses, guys. And two, like if you've ever seen those videos, like once the dog gets up, especially a bully that's gamey about that sort of stuff, once they get under there, like you can't get in and get that dog without getting seriously injured yourself.
Well, there's so many variables. The horse can kick the dog. The horse can buck the rider. The horse can run away.
Yes.
Which is a disaster.
All of it is awful. So I have a long line. I can grab my dog and I can yank him out of there if I need to. So I use a lot of tools for a lot of different things. It just depends on the goals and why we're doing it. So that's a big one. The other one, I think one of the bigger ones. So I used to be I wanted to see the dog walking in a nice loose leash kind of right next to me or behind me. That was, like they should follow you. They shouldn't be out front. I don't believe in that anymore. That's changed for me a lot. I want to give the dogs as much room as I possibly can safely. If they're not pulling me, I'm happy. And by pulling, I mean like there's no tension on that leash. If I start to see a little bit of tension, I'm probably going to move in another direction so that I can test and see if that dog is paying attention. If they're not paying attention, I'm going to do some U-turns. I'm going to do some figure eights, something to get that dog paying attention. Same thing that we would do for like obedience training. But I just don't see the value in everyday dogs that don't have behavior problems walking in a heel down the street.
Yeah.
I just don't. I also don't do neighborhood walks anymore. I do for clients, because that's, just a quick, like during the day, I'll get them out. But for my own dogs, I have found the amount of reactivity that has gone away just from removing a neighborhood walk from my daily routine, which I used to, oh my God, every day, get out and walk your dog, move as a pack together. Like, dogs are pack animals, move together, move together, move together. I don't do it anymore. I'm not like that anyway.
This is great stuff. I love this. Keep going.
Thanks. But yeah, so that one came about. So Charlie,
Wait, you're a dog walker and you don't take your dog on neighborhood walks? What the hell?
You guys, the amount of reactivity in neighborhoods is insane.
Yes, it is.
It's insane.
I just put a video out on my Facebook page today.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
It's not about specifically neighborhood walks, but in the video, I'm talking about using a long line, and I have it on a dog that's trained. Mm-hmm. He's a golden retriever and he's trained, but he will be walking very nicely with my pack of dogs, and all of a sudden it's like he'll punk one of the dogs and just be like, hey, and he'll just punch him and be like, well, let's go. And the dogs are old and they're like, no. And so I have a long line on him. You know what I mean? Because I want to be able to say, knock it off and have him walk with me for a few steps, and that solves the problem. I don't have to be frying him on the e-collar, and I don't have to be yelling at him.
So much less conflict.
And I'm just like, all right, well, you're going to wear a long line, and he still has a blast, but the worst thing in the world for that dog is a neighborhood walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, this dog has attacked flat out attacked dogs in his neighborhood. And if it were just me and I didn't know that information about this dog, I would never in a million years be like, oh yeah, he almost like took out a 12-year-old poodle in the neighborhood.
Oh God.
And it's just because of all that conflict from being on a short leash and being in a neighborhood where all the dogs are behind an electric fence. They're walking down the street, just getting barked at.
Constantly.
Constantly.
Your dog doesn't know that dog can't get to them. Right. They know the intensity of the dog's energy. Like, I mean, have you ever been walking by a house with the big bay windows and the dog just smashes the window?
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for him to come through.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know, and like we know at least enough where we can tell ourselves as humans, like, okay, I see the sign that says that's an underground fence. Right.
You've walked by the house before and you know.
Like we can logic our way through that. Right. And I'll tell you what, even if you can, I have had dogs on a number of occasions break out of underground fences and come after me. I've had dogs jump regular fences and come after me. I've had dogs smash open their front doors and come after me. They're really pent up and they're really frustrated, and they have been barking at everything that has gone by that house all day long,
for their whole lives,
for their entire life. So, you know, it's scary. And so even for us where we know it's scary. So imagine being a dog walking down the street and every single house has somebody in the window or behind a fence going, I'm going to kill you. If I get out of here, I'm going to mess you up. I wouldn't feel safe. So every time they see a dog, of course, they're going to get away from me. So they become reactive, right? And then add to that they can't escape because they're on a short little leash. It's a lot of problems with it. Yeah.
It's a lot of problems with walking your dog.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
yeah.
And I would challenge the listener, just drive around a neighborhood and watch the dogs that are on leashes. And drive around at like 5-6 o'clock when everybody comes home from work. Because I feel very lucky. I do 50-50 leash walks. My schedule is 2 hikes and then neighborhood walks.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll take my neighborhood walk dogs in the woods and we'll just do a short little loop, maybe on leash, maybe off leash, maybe some sort of combination of both. If I have extra time to drive 5 minutes to the woods, I'd prefer that.
Same.
Over the neighborhood walk. But sometimes I have to do it, you know. And I have some dogs that absolutely love walking on a leash. I had 2 of them today.
Yep.
I love Mondays. Mondays is the best day for me because, like, I have 2 female doodles that love to walk on a leash, and we just get our steps in. We just go, and then my hikes are great. But I feel blessed because when I'm walking the dogs, it's either other dog walkers or nobody's out because they're not home from work.
Same.
And it's great because I feel like there's just way less risk. If I had to walk dogs between 5 and 6 o'clock every night when all of the dogs are out, I probably wouldn't walk my dogs. No. Because if you just watch dogs that are walking in a neighborhood, half of them are losing their minds.
Mm-hmm. I don't go out on hikes on the weekends.
Oh, me neither.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or if I do, it's like at 7 a.m.
Yeah, like really, really random off-peak times. Or like it was last week. It was so cold and windy. I went on so many hikes with my dogs last week because no one's going to be out there.
Yeah.
If it's raining, that's when I go out. Otherwise, like I go at sunset. So I'll go because I live like really close to Megan's place where she's got like, you know, the trails out behind her house. So I'll go and park right there and head on out. But yeah, no, I avoid it a lot. So, but yeah, so what we don't do neighborhood walks. Neighborhood walks caused a tremendous amount of reactivity in my dogs. That wasn't the only factor, but it was a major factor. I noticed at the end of Charlie's life. So Charlie had a TPLO surgery in December. He passed away in July. So we got probably 4 or 5 good months, right? But he was recovering in the middle of the winter. So most of his, you know, rehab was done on a treadmill, which by the way, I highly recommend for a lot of reasons, but partly because you're not dealing with any other dogs possibly causing your dog to strain their leg, right? If they react, if they jump, if they get too excited, you can control the speed, you can control the time. It's right in your house. Really simple little, because you have to walk them multiple times a day, really slowly for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
But because of that, we weren't out in the neighborhood. We weren't doing walks. His reactivity, oh my God, it dropped. It dropped so much. You guys, Charlie was dangerously reactive. He's the reason I'm a dog trainer because he was so bad. And for something as simple as the neighborhood walks that I have been told to take for years and years, you must move together. You must be a pack. You must be a team. You must navigate the world together and demonstrate your ability, you know, whatever. Removing that was life-changing. For him, it was life-changing for Desmond. I mean, Eddie's always been who he is. He's fine. But like the two of them, like Elroy's never been on a neighborhood walk. I've had him since the end of November.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I didn't take Raven on neighborhood walks either.
Mm-mm.
And it's funny because Laurie is a big neighborhood walker because she doesn't have Buddha on the e-collar. And if she's off leash with him and a dog runs up on him, like there's probably going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we do take hikes with him, but it's always very controlled. And
Eddie's like that too.
So she spends a lot of time walking Buddha on a leash and he does really well. You know, but when I had Raven, I was just like, first of all, it was dead of winter. Second of all, I was just like, I just don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to walk a puppy on a leash just sucks. And she spent so much time on a flexi lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she got spayed, I took her on 6 neighborhood walks where we just did the same loop and she was in a heel, like on a flexi, but in heel the whole time. And we would take breaks. I'd let her out and go, there's power lines around here. So like, you know, let her out and go sniff. But she has a really strong heel command because like the dog is trained.
Yeah.
So, but when she was walking in heel, she's not happy. So like she's in position and she's walking along, but her tail is flat. Her head is a little down. And for an outsider, they'd be like, wow, that dog's like really well behaved.
Yep.
And she is well behaved. I mean, we went on the loop that I do is 2 miles and we went on that loop a bunch of times in the 2 weeks where she got spayed and she got her steps in. It was before I got the treadmill and it was fine, but it wasn't what she likes to do by any stretch of the imagination. And to be honest with you, it's better for me because like I have my headphones in, I'm bebopping along. But when I look down at her and look at her body language and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, she's doing this and she looks good and she's in heel position. And if she gets out ahead of me and I say no heel, she drops right back into heel position. And I don't have a correction collar on. I don't have an e-collar on. I don't have a prong collar on. And she's on a flexi heeling with me for 2 miles and it's impressive. But is it what she likes to do? Not even close. And it helped with her recovery because it gets her steps in and whatnot. And some dogs, like I said, really love to walk on a leash. They do. And I appreciate those dogs just as much as I appreciate the ones that like to be off of the leash and free as well. For the dogs that I have that walk really well on leashes, they tend to have very soft temperaments, very high levels of pack drive, but very quick to switch into flight if they get spooked.
Yep.
I'm thinking of 3 dogs that are on my schedule right now that fit into this category, and they're not good candidates for off-leash hikes because they don't like other dogs being in their space. They can walk past another dog on a leash, no problem, like zero reactivity. They don't even look at them. But they know when we're on a leash that I'm going to step in if I need to. And we had this discussion because we were talking about Desmond and something that happened earlier today. But like if I have dogs off leash and another dog runs up on them, guys, there is nothing that you can do in that situation. Mm-hmm. There's nothing you can do. People say like advocate for your dog in their space. Like you can't. The other dog
it makes it worse.
100% of the time it makes it worse. It's unless they're
right.
fighting. Unless they're fighting. Okay, if they're fighting, you need to step in and make sure that stops straight away. But like if a random dog runs up on us, which happens to me every fucking day. Okay? It happens. You're in the woods and it happens. I don't do anything anymore. I'm just like, all right, well, we're in this now. And I know that with these particular dogs that enjoy leash walks, that if I have them off the leash in the woods, I can't advocate for their space. I can't protect them. There's nothing that I can do. Whereas if I'm in the neighborhood, other dogs are on leashes, I can be a little bit more protective of them. And it's like they know it.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that like tools that go on dogs where they feel safer. And for those dogs, a leash. For some dogs, like Eddie, he doesn't like when I put the muzzle on him, but once he has the muzzle on, there's almost like a weight. It lets him be a little bit more free because he knows that he's not allowed to fight, right? He knows that. He enjoys fighting. That's important for everyone to know if you don't know that about Eddie. He's not going to pick a fight, but he's very comfortable and happy to oblige if anybody would like to fight. I don't like that. And he and I have a very good relationship and he knows that. The second he gets a muzzle on, he can socialize. I mean, he can socialize without it, but he feels like he's not going to make mistakes.
Well, you probably don't correct him very much when the muzzle's on.
Also, yeah. I can step. I can step back. There's so much less pressure. No, that's a really good point, though. So that was one of the questions. Actually, I've derailed our conversation, but I was talking with Elroy's breeder, and she goes, "Hey, like, so she's so good, and she trusts me completely, and she's just asking for her own knowledge." But she goes, "I noticed that Eddie's muzzle has come back out. Is he being a little like feisty?" And I go, "Well, no, I'm like, just Elroy's been being a little pushy and he was a little stressed. And I know that like, he just needed that extra layer and I feel better. I can let them coexist and it buys me time in the moments where maybe Eddie would have gone too far." Right. And he's been so good. He's been really very, very tempered in the way he's dealt with a puppy. Like he's demonstrated communication that I didn't know he had in him. He's a dog, so I would expect it, but like he usually just kind of responds. I'm so proud of him, but he was under stress. And so we threw the muzzle in there and I was like, there's a ton of reasons. But one of them is partly what you just said. Like, I don't need to be putting all that extra pressure on there. I don't need to be stepping in every 5 seconds and touching Elroy's leash to move him away and splitting them and all the things that you do when there's
when you're
worry.
Afraid.
Yeah. And it is a good point, and he does better with it on. He's doing great with it off. It's off again. And when Elroy hits a little, when he gets to adolescence, we'll probably pop it back on because it's just how it goes. And you ebb and flow and add and remove as they need. But yeah, like adding certain tools can definitely make a dog feel better. Certain scenarios, certain contexts can make a dog feel much better.
Yeah. And I think having the intellectual flexibility as a trainer is the biggest advantage, I think, and it does circle back to what the original topic was. Just having different tools in your toolbox and realizing that not all dogs are the same. And you can't have a cookie cutter formula. And if anything, that's what I've realized. And the tools play into it too, because I'm not going to put a prong collar on a soft doodle that's like, already that just needs to play a little bit, and then they'll be more than happy to hang out with me. If it gets out of control on the walking and it's just unmanageable, like, sure, I'm open to the idea, but realizing that like not every dog has a killer instinct.
Yeah, most of them don't.
Yeah, that's an important one, especially as dog trainers. Like, so many of us work with dogs with behavioral problems, and you're worried about getting bit, or you're worried like, oh my God, this dog is going to grab another dog's neck and shake it to death. And not all dogs will.
Yeah.
And I would pretty much guarantee that most of the dogs that you're working with, like, they're either bluffing or, that you don't have to go into every situation thinking that like this dog is going to be dangerous or they're going to hurt me. Or I need to use this barrage of tools because this is what I put on every single dog that comes into this training program. And being able to be open and have that flexibility and realize like that they're not all the same. And also, like, some dogs are just dumb. Like some dogs make bad decisions because they're not that smart, and they need a lot of feedback from you. Other dogs aren't. They are smart, and if they get the feedback once, they're all set and they're good to go. And if they're all set and good to go, you can stop giving them feedback, But
as little as you can get away with, honestly, is the best path.
Right. And that's something that I've had to learn along the way, is just paying attention to the feedback the dog is giving me and then making my decisions based on that. And it's been hard from a dog walking point of view because so many of the dogs that I walk that are just on my walking schedule, like, I need to be training them. They would benefit if I could take the dog for a day or 2 days a week, or they could come for the weekend or something, but they're not, So like being able to adjust what I'm doing, like I'm working with a little pit bull right now. She's terrified to be outside, and like her parents hired me to take her for a walk. So it's like, okay. So for the last 6 months, the dog has never gone to the bathroom in my presence. I've seen her twice a week.
Oh my gosh.
Super duper happy to see me when I walk inside the house. We'll do obedience inside the house. As soon as we get outside of the house, like in the air outside, shuts down. But like, it's very strange because she's on a walk. Like, I can be like, hey girl, and she'll look up at me and I can click and feed. But then as soon as the reward's over, nose is back down, tail's tucked again. In the yard, I was just like throwing sticks around, trying to get this dog to chase me, do zoomies, anything, for 6 months. And then last week, Tuesday and Thursday, she peed on the ground outside in the yard and she played ball with me. So I'm like, all right, great. So now it's like, I'm supposed to be with her for 25 minutes. It's like 10-minute play, little tiny walk, 10-minute play. That's it. And so figuring out, okay, I was hired to do this job. I'm technically doing the job.
You're doing way more than that job.
Right. But, and
good.
And it's like, should they be coming to training classes? Yes. Are they going to? No. Why? Because the dog's an angel inside the house. She's good with the kids. She's not peeing inside the house. She goes inside of her crate. She's not chewing things, but she's terrified to be outside.
Yep.
And for me as a trainer, I would look at that and be like, oh my God, this poor dog, like she's not able to enjoy her life. And from the owner's perspective, they're like, this dog is amazing.
Yeah.
She's cuddling with me on the couch, but they don't have the same perspective. And I need to be able to say, I'm not going to change their mind. I'm not going to try to convince them to get this dog to play with them and bring them to GRC, even though I'm sure that would be great for this dog. And 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to make those, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So having that flexibility for me has gone a long way. And it is frustrating sometimes to meet owner expectations and meet the dogs where they're at. But ultimately, it's my job. Here I am.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really good moments when you get those like, oh my God, when she peed outside. That's
Twice.
Incredible. I took a picture the first time that Desmond pooped outside on a walk. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, for people who don't understand how big of a deal that is, like that's a big deal. These dogs that are so scared, like they won't go to the bathroom outside of their safe space because it's vulnerable. That's a big deal. Good job.
Yeah. And she's still nervous, but like and the owners are like, she won't pee on a leash. And I know, like, if she was my dog, I'd put her on a long line. I would go outside the first thing in the morning, and I would stand out there until if she didn't pee, I'd bring her back inside the crate. And the dog would be peeing on a leash with me within a week.
Yep.
I know she would be if she was with me. Guess what? She's not with me. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that people are willing to deal with because the rest of it feels really good.
Right.
So, yeah, everybody's vision is different.
It is.
Unfortunately.
Everybody has their own perspective when it comes to this stuff is just what I've realized. Like, things that I find intolerable, other people think are cute.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about the big things. I'm talking about little things, like being able to be in the house and cuddle on the couch with the dog. Like, I'm not saying that that's intolerable, but it's not the most important thing to me.
Right.
And for some people, that is the most important thing to them. Because
and there are dogs that do that.
That's their vision of what a dog should be.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm out like with my rain boots on half the time, throwing things around in a field and,
playing with dead ducks.
Yeah, letting my dog run 200 yards away from me. And that's what I think is fun.
Yes.
fun.
Yes. Drive and purpose. It's beautiful.
I'm sure a balance of both would be good. Although Raven has been enjoying more house time lately. We have had her up. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh. If she did GRC, the part where she can do whatever she wants would be terrible. The dog would just be walking around figuring out what she could do to entertain herself. She has no, they call it an off switch, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's very busy.
Yeah.
Getting better with age, for sure.
Of course. Oh my gosh. One of the things, this made me laugh actually. So on Friday night, I get Elroy out of the car. We had club practice. And one of the members came and was like, oh, hey, Elroy. And I'm just pottying him or whatever. And the first thing Elroy does is he's a 15-week-old puppy. He goes and he jumps on him. And he goes, nope, no jumping. And he kind of pushed him off and stood up. I was like, I haven't done anything with jumping. Like, I don't care. I care down the road. But right now, he's just a little baby. I want him to be the biggest, boldest version of himself that he could ever possibly be. And I will carve him down later into all the little pieces. And so for me, I want him being pushy about food. I want him, when he knows he's earned a reward, I want him going, you're not going fast enough. Give it to me, because I've given him his marker. I want that stuff right now. I will teach him not to jump later, but it just made me laugh at because he's an owner. He is awesome. He's so dedicated. Ben, if you're listening, shout out to you. With Liam and Roxy, they're fabulous. They are going to be trialing at the South Shore GRC trial next weekend.
Good luck, Roxy.
Yay. And Liam. And Appa will be there as well with a beautiful standard poodle. But anyway, so everybody's perspective on what dogs should do. And it was so nice because I know he was thinking this is a trainer. She doesn't want her dog jumping.
Yeah.
And it was so thoughtful. And I'm just
don't care.
Nope. It's just not the thing right now. He has a really nice little side sit. I haven't taught him any obedience. I don't care right now. And it was just a very interesting juxtaposition that I hadn't seen yet. And it just made me laugh. So, but just thinking about things that drive people crazy versus I want that jumping right now. I want that energy. I want that drive. I want that desire. So I can channel it later.
Yeah, it was funny because my uncle, I bring Raven back to the farm with me sometimes. And my uncle was like, aren't you a dog trainer? This dog's crazy. Because she is inside. She doesn't do anything bad, but I'm inside the office. I'm just talking to him, and she's just walking around, whatever, doing her thing. She's like, "Aren't you a dog trainer? This dog's crazy." And I just go, "Raven, down," and she lays down, and she stayed down for 20 minutes as we were talking.
Yeah,
and I was just and I looked at him after. I'm like, "Is that better?" And he's like, "Well, yeah," and I'm like, "Well."
What do you want?
What do you want from me? You know what I mean? This is her. This is she. She'll do the thing.
Yeah.
If I say do the thing, but she's not getting herself into trouble. Whatever. I'm just gonna let her be. And it is funny to see or hear what other people's expectations are when they meet you and you say if I'm meeting a dog and it's a puppy, I'm going to get on the ground. I'm going to let it crawl all over me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to pet it like an idiot and make funny noises. It's they're a puppy.
All day long.
You know what I mean?
I'll do that with with dogs that are a little insecure and it brings them out of their shell. Oh my God. All day long. A dog that is finally brave enough to put its feet on me that's been terrified. I'm like, this is a breakthrough. Do we want this long term? No. But for this dog, not all of them, but for this dog, this is a big deal. So like even some adult dogs, you're like, wow, look at you being brave. Yeah, like I think it just kind of goes back to that flexibility. Like puppies need something different. Certain fearful, insecure dogs need something completely different as well. Some of these really forward dogs that like just you need to put a cap on them and channel it. It just depends.
It does. Even with Raven, like she has a little bit of fear with men. And so it's
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. She won't come up to you if you're a dude.
Cool.
You can have a steak and wave it in front of her and she won't take it from you. My dad will not go up to my dad. My brother, totally no. I give them a ball and say, play fetch with her. She's their best friend. So it's like, cool. I have a fix. You know what I mean? It's like we can work through it, but it might not look the way that somebody else might want it to look or expect it to look.
Sure.
And Paul actually gave me a really cool piece of advice about her temperament and the fact that like sometimes she's just like a little bit careful and cautious in the environment. And I'm going to paraphrase kind of what he said, but he said, you know, we breed these working dogs to be like hyper aware of what's going on and like hypersensitive to feedback. And then when they are hypersensitive and hyper aware of things we don't want them to be, we call them nervy.
Yep.
And it's like, yes, there is a truly nervous dog that just like shuts down with novel stimulation and it's not a good thing. But with Raven in particular, like she walks into an environment and she's like, what's going on in here? And then I have the tools to get her to open up. Like the dog will play in any environment with anybody. So it's like that's built in and I can work with it. But to be honest with you, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that with her. Like I think she would be a little bit nervous. I really do. But thinking about it from that perspective of like, this is a working dog.
Yeah.
Like we want them to be like, what the hell's going on here? And then we get pissed.
Yeah.
when like
they do exactly what we wanted.
Careful of dudes or like they don't necessarily want to jump in the water with both feet. It was just a really interesting kind of perspective that I had never thought about before because I was always looking at it as like a problem. I under-socialized. You know, I didn't do the right things when she was a puppy, like, you know, and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, she's hyper aware and she's looking and it's okay and we can work through it. And that was just really helpful for me anyway to think about from that perspective, which is different than like nervous and shut down and like afraid of her shadow. And like, that's a totally different thing. But you know, we've all seen the Malinois that's kind of like, what's going on in here?
Yeah.
You know, and she has like a little bit of a touch of that. So you just have to be aware of it and work through it. And if you have a ball, she's your best friend.
Well, and that just goes to show like how important building play and a play relationship with your dog can be for a lot of these dogs. Yeah. Really, really important.
And I wanted to say this too, because I had just worked with another lab that you met, Knox, but
great dog.
Yeah, he's super cute. But I had him out because I'm going to be doing off leash stuff with him starting next week. But I was inside because it was freezing out, and so I was like, all right, I'll just reward him with a tug. I don't even know if this dog's going to find it rewarding. Never done it before, and it was so funny because I rewarded him with the tug. He was like, okay, play the chase me around the yard game or the room game because he lives in a house with a bunch of little kids. I'm sure he gets things that he's not supposed to. Once I put a little pressure on that tug and let him win, it was like his brain exploded. He was like, oh, you're not trying to take this away from me completely? Okay, cool. And it was just so funny to see him put the pieces together on something that he's never done before, especially for labs, because with a lot of labs, like we're discouraged from playing tug with them.
Yeah. Or told they don't like it.
Yeah.
And don't even try.
You should try. You really should. Because the coolest thing, and this is going down a rabbit hole, and I know we don't have a ton of time left, but it's so fun for me to play with labs because they play tug like they retrieve. They win and then they come right back. They win and they come right back. So it's like, you know, with Buddha, for example, like he likes to win and then like parade around.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, I'm going to whip it and like kill it and all that stuff. Like they don't have that. It's more like tug, tug, tug. That was fun. I want to come back in for more. So it's like you can literally do it forever with Raven, and she's just so happy to do it, and she almost plays tug like she retrieves a ball just at a shorter distance with like this like fake conflict. It's not like really conflict because they don't really like it. And it was just funny to do that with another lab, similar age, totally different breeding, and just see him be like, oh wow, this is like really fun.
That's so cute.
It was cute. Anyway, I hear Elroy crying.
I do too.
So we're gonna get back downstairs. But Jamie, thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love this. This was a blast.
Yes, and we have to take a picture too. I need to be better about promoting the podcast. So anybody that wants to hold me accountable to that, please feel free. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Again, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends, and you will hear from us next time.